Namaste. The subject is debate and its necessity for progress. In one sense, everything can make us progress, depending on the stage, depending on the context, depending on the time and space, and so many other parameters. Progress depends upon the attitude which we take. So, with regard to debate, we can take one of the three attitudes. One attitude is I am right and I have only to convince the other person. Now, when we take this attitude, then obviously we don't progress. As Sri Aurobindo puts it very beautifully, that, O eager disputant, if you have won in a debate, then it's a pity for thee. Why? Because we have lost a chance to progress. So, first is there are people who speak of debating, but actually they want to convey or not only convey a point, they want to make a point and they believe that they are right. So that's not the spirit of the debate. The spirit of the debate is when two people are ready, both are ready to learn, understand, mutually grow. So, but first attitude is this. The second attitude of debate is where it's no more just the mind, but passions and emotions and everything gets in. So, debate is normally done from the ground of the mind. Debate is a mental process. So, to debate rightly, to debate with clarity, one needs to keep away emotions, one has to keep away passions, to look at life very impersonally, to look at life from the discerning intelligence, to take the facts also correctly and clearly, not that one picks up facts from here, there, and distorts them. So, it's a whole process, it's a whole mental discipline. It's not easy to engage in debate unless we have disciplined ourselves in various ways. For instance, there is a tendency that whatever we read from here, there, everywhere. Let us say I am speaking right now about the news, for example. We take it for granted that it is correct, and based on that we debate. Now, the very first premise is wrong because we are placing our trust in a news item. It may or may not be correct because it may be motivated. Very often, news items are, even when they are correct, they are half the facts. So, there is a very careful screening, and even when certain channels promise that they are nishpaksh, they are impartial, still there is that partiality and the bias, because for human nature, even otherwise, it's so difficult to become impartial. So, if you really want to debate, truly speaking, very few have the mental discipline to really engage into debate. So, this is the second approach that we can take, to keep away all the intrusion of different aspects and corners. And the third is when we debate to really learn. This is the correct spirit of debate. When two people come together, unfortunately today debate is associated with a lot of mental quarreling, trying to prove a point, in which each one has their conviction. So debate should be done to understand and enlarge the scope of my understanding. So this is best done when instead of one person just hammering the point, we listen to the other person. So when we listen to the other person and see that point of view, we have our point of view, the other person has their point of view, and when we try to find a higher synthesis, if we read through Mother's on education, where she speaks about mental education, she says one of the capacity of the mind should be to synthesize. Like there is a point, there is a counterpoint, thesis and antithesis, and both can be harmonized in a new synthesis. Let us take a simple example. Now all this is going on. For instance, virus, people are questioning whether to take the vaccination or not to take the vaccination. So we will see there are points in favor of taking a vaccination. There are points equally not in favor of taking a vaccination. So how do we really find the synthesis? Now to find the synthesis, we have to see that humanity is arranged along a hierarchy. Now there are people who are afraid, there are people who live in the physical consciousness. Mother herself so beautifully said when she was asked, why do you advocate filter water? Why do we have filter water in the ashram? When we have to depend on faith and on our inner consciousness. She said because we are not ready for it. So 90% of people, they still depend on physical means and therefore they need to take physical means. Taking a vaccine gives them the faith that now they are immune and therefore it's all right for them. So there is a kind of humanity for which it is all right. There is another kind of humanity which wants to rely on faith and inner means. So it's perfectly fine and valid for them not to take it. So now there are many aspects of it, but I'm just trying to say that we can understand how to synthesize is that we can say that whether to take the vaccine or not will depend upon the state of one's consciousness. If the state is one of fear, if the state is such that we have faith only on outer methods, yes, we should take it. But if the state is one of, a state of grace, as it is called, where we have complete reliance and dependence on the mother, on the divine, then it's perfectly fine not to take it. Of course, I am not mentioning about whether it should be forced or not. That's a different area altogether. So in debate, we have to again separate issues. Like for instance, in vaccination issue, it's not only about whether vaccine is good or not. Very often we'll see two debates are mixed up. One is whether vaccine is good or not. Second, whether it should be taken enforced or not. Now these are two very different premises and they have to be dealt with separately. So very few people can separate all these minor strands of any subject. So that's why it is always better generally not to engage in debate unless one is has the kind of mental discipline, has the kind of mental wideness. Wideness is required. Very often in debate we become very narrow-minded because we want to just convey our point and we are not ready, willing or open to understand the other person. But if our mind is wide, it is plastic, it is able to reach to a new height where it can synthesize. Very often there is a truth in every point of view. For each one it works well. But we have to find that poise from where we can understand the truth of each point of view, which is different. So, if we look at it like that, debate can be a tremendous help in making the mind wide, in making the mind supple. Two things which are very necessary even for the supramental knowledge to pour in. Because supramental knowledge is not an either or knowledge. It is not like, for example, some people are materialists, some are spiritualists, some are Mayavadins, some are Dvaitavadins, some are Advaita, some are, religionists, so etc. We see different viewpoints. Now, instead of debating, when we see that higher knowledge comes in, it puts everything in its place. So, but for that, the mind has to be wide. If the mind is not wide, people very often take one-sided point of view, say this is the ultimate and final, and turn it into a belief system. So debate has this advantage. It frees us from many of these. Actually, its purpose is to free us from prejudices, opinions, fixed dogmas, narrow-minded thought. But very often we end up keeping all this narrowness and then debating. Now that's not a debate. That is really trying to prove a point. So that is by its nature not a debate. Second thing, when we debate, we must be very clear what are the premises. For example, every kind of logic we use. For example, let's say some people say there is God and some people say there is no God. So what is the premise? The premise when people say that there is no God is that whatever we experience through the senses alone is true. This could be a premise. Now we can see it's a false premise because there are a lot of things we don't experience by the senses and yet they are true. Or the premise can be that only that which we can rationally analyze is true. This also may be a false premise because there are many things which escape rational analysis. For instance, love, ananda, many such things, but they exist very much. So a lot of arguments depend upon the logical stance we have taken or the premise on which we are building up an argument. So the wider the premise, the more likely are we to arrive at truth, at least an approximation of it. So this is the second aspect we must take into consideration. But nevertheless, if done rightly, debate can help to a degree in mental development. But when it comes to spiritual matters, now we have to see that there is a ground where there is a scope of debate. There is a ground where debate must give place to faith. For example, spiritual things. Now, spiritual things by their very nature exceed the data of the senses and of the mind. For example, in spiritual things, we are asked to have faith in the divine. Now, how are we going to prove that whether the divine exists or not? For every argument in favor or against it, there will be a counter argument which can be given. So that's where, wherever there is a unknown towards which we are moving, we have to use faith. So there is a place for debate and discussion, there is a place for faith. Now this faith in general about things which are not and which yet can be. For example, some people say, how are we to know about supermind, whether it has descended or not? We cannot know. By the mind, by the rational senses, we cannot know. I mean, we can hint at it. We can find suggestions in it. If we have the inner eye open, we can get a sense. I mean, there is a way of looking at the world where we see that everything in the world is a disclosure of God. But Another person may not agree it. He may say that no, it is just a chance and random processes. So basically, there is a place where faith is needed rather than debate and discussions. Then a third thing is there when we take to the spiritual path is the word of the Guru. So in the ancient tradition, it is known as Apta Vakya Praman. That means if the Guru says, because Guru has a higher consciousness, Guru has seen a higher truth, therefore he is giving us that truth, we have to accept it as faith and proceed. Many people don't like to do that because say, no, if we have faith, it will turn it into religion or a belief system. No, it will turn into a religion or a belief system if we believe that this, we have to stay with the belief. But in yoga, this faith is the starting point to arrive at knowledge and the realization. Realization really literally means to make real what is not yet real to us. So, faith is a starting point in yoga and leads us to knowledge. So, it is a good thing to start with a complete implicit faith in the Guru. Because if we don't have faith, then why are we going to a Guru? If we can arrive at things purely by our own mental understanding, analysis, etc., then there is no need of Guru. Now, that is another part. That is the path of Vichar, Vivek, etc. Whether it can lead us to God or not, to the ultimate truth, is a different subject. So, we are not getting into that. But for the moment, if we have accepted somebody as a master, it means that the master knows more than what we know. So this is another place where we don't really have much scope of a debate. People who want to debate about the master, they were right. They don't have not yet accepted as a master, and they have a right to discuss in their head or with people who are like-minded. But generally, it is not good to enter into debate and dissensions over what the master has said. In your private time, one can do whatever one wants to, but in a collective study circle, it's not good. Also not good in a collective study circle. Why? Because when we have read something, in a study circle, we have read something which has come down from Mother and Sri Aurobindo. It contains a power, it contains a knowledge, it has consciousness in it. So, how are we going to receive it? Not through the this method of the mind of debate. We can receive it by simply remaining quiet and letting this knowledge, this power, this force, this love, this ananda, this peace, this consciousness percolate into us. So, as far as study circles are concerned, definitely debate is not the way. Mother has said at one place about a study circle that best is to, after reading in quietude, take up one question, and that question is, shared by others, and one person gives a reply who has maybe read everything that Mother and Sri Aurobindo have said on a subject. In a study circle, it's also a problematic thing because unless one has really read Mother and Sri Aurobindo completely, knows all the different sides, and most importantly, one has walked on the path, one is not even in a position to speak about what they are saying. So in study circle, it's best to read, then stay quiet and receive it and quietly move because one is receiving that consciousness. Later on, one is free to debate, discuss with those who are who want to discuss and debate. That is perfectly fine. But in a study circle, it is best to remain quiet, to maybe contemplate, quietly reflect. That is the method of yoga. We have Upanishadic statements, and that was how the Upanishadic yoga proceeded. That we pick up a great truth, a great idea, concentrate upon it, meditate upon it, reflect upon it, not analyze it. And then by reflecting upon it, the whole truth is revealed. That is the way of finding truth, by identification, wherein we pick up an idea. Idea can be that all is in the divine is in all, or all is the divine. Now, how are we to understand it? Not by any mental, vichar and vivek, by analysis. We have to just concentrate upon this idea, meditate upon it, reflect upon it, allow the mind to run over this idea. Then a time comes when the mind pierces through the cover of the idea, the words and the greater truth behind that idea is revealed to us. At first, it is revealed to us in the mind as an illumination, and later on, if we persist on that, then it becomes an experience, and if we continue to persist, then it becomes a fact of our realization. That is how spiritual experience, spiritual life, and the spiritual path opens. So that's a ground where debate is, really speaking, it is a diversion, and it takes us away from the path which has been shown to us for spiritual ascension. So to summarize, we can say that debate has a place in mental development. So in classes, in schools, people have debates, and it's a good thing to take up a point, counterpoint, and learn to find a synthesis. This mental development, like all other development, is part of our nature's education, because this is how our mind becomes ready to receive a greater truth. So it has its place, but and a ground where if one wants to develop the mind, yes, this is a very good way, provided we don't get into an animated discussion, bring in passions, bring in emotions, belief systems, narrow, rigid ideas, and we want everybody to believe it, then it's no more a debate. But purely on logical premises, if we argue something, it helps the mind to develop, which eventually will help us to receive the higher light. Or rather, when we receive the higher light, then the mind is ready and supple and wide to receive it and transmit it faithfully. If the mind is very narrow, and even if we receive a higher light, the narrow and rigid mind immediately turns it into a dogma, into an article of belief, like what has happened in religions. Divine truths are not like that, they are infinite. And they are extremely plastic. It's not like a fixed dogma for all time. So the mind should become wide and plastic, and debates help us to arrive at that. It's not necessary we need to debate with somebody. Within our mind, we can go through a chain of logical reasoning. We should ourselves go to make the mind wide, pick up an idea, then try to see another points of views, and then find a synthesis. But when it comes to spiritual things, it's best not to get into debates and discussion, but to understand that these are things beyond the mind and the senses. Therefore, just to stay quiet, receptive, open with faith, and aspire that may the true understanding dawn upon us. So I'll just read a little something Mother has written about it. A debate is never anything but a conflict of opinions. And opinions are nothing but very fragmentary aspects of the truth. Each opinion represents an aspect, and very fragmentary, distorted very often. Even if you were able to put together and synthesize all opinions on a given subject, you still would not achieve anything but a very imperfect expression of the truth. Why? Because opinions are based on a kind of data to which people have an access, but truth is based on a data. Truth is not a data, it's not based on a data, but on an experience which is not accessible to this data receiving mechanism in us. If you prevail in a debate, it means that your opinion has prevailed over the opinion of another. Not necessarily because yours was truer than his, but because you were better at wielding the arguments, or because you were a more stubborn debater. This is very evident in all the court cases. This happens. So who wins the argument? Not necessarily the lawyer who is standing for truth, but a lawyer who can argue his case well. That is why when people pick up a lawyer, they pick up somebody who can argue the case well. Now, originally lawyers were meant to bring out the truth. So the lawyer on this side and the other side, they were meant to help the judge that justice can be done. But now it is like, you have paid me money, I will try to save you. So something similar happens in the human mind when we debate and discuss. So when we win in a debate, that means we have actually lost a opportunity to widen ourselves. And winning doesn't mean it is true. Winning simply means, like, maybe the whole world may believe that there is no sun in a world which is blind. Doesn't mean that the sun doesn't exist. So that is the situation of the debate, that truth is not decided based on numbers and who has won an argument. And lastly, she says, and you come out of the discussion convinced that you are right in what you assert, and so you lose a chance to see a view of the question other than your own, and to add an aspect of the truth to the one or the ones you already possess. So it's not either or. It's important to understand that all these are different faces. They make a complete whole. When we try to do either or, Mother says we are living in an age when it is no more this or that. It is this and that. It is not materialism or spirituality. It is materialism, matter and spirit. Both must come together. And not just in terms of thought, but in a higher synthesis. It's like spirit using matter for its own manifestation. You remain imprisoned in your own thought and refuse to widen it. So the original purpose of debate is to widen oneself. But as I said, in spiritual things, it's better for the mind to remain quiet, to know that there are things which the mind at present cannot comprehend. One day it will, if it makes the necessary effort for the ascension, and by the receiving of light as an act of grace, then things can be known and not otherwise. Thank you.